Yo, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. This is a reaction to why Gen X is the hardest working generation of all time. I couldn't tell you what era Gen X are from. I assume it's going to say here. I'm a Gen Z, which is now not the newest, but in in regards to how it's seen, probably seen as the laziest generation, but I do also think the newest generations are always just seen as like the couch potatoes, the couch potatoes of society. Obviously, you got millennials before. I couldn't actually name any before that, which shows, yeah, I'm not very aware. But I'm 2001, so I'm not too deep into being a Gen Z. So I'm like 5 years. If I was 5 years before, I'd be a millennial. I don't actually care, to be honest, but just thought I'd say that. But yeah, Gen X, I'm going to assume this is probably, I don't really know, because realistically, I'm thinking of the hardest working generation of all time. I'm thinking of either the generation who helped rebuild after World War Two, or the generation the generation during World War Two. If that, maybe it's the same, I don't know. But that's what I would sort of instantly think about. And looking at this, they look like they're from like the 60s, maybe the 70s, mid 70s. Yeah, probably like 70s. But yeah, we're gonna check this out and see. Obviously, some of you will be from this generation or generations near around this era. And yeah, you probably agree. Again, Gen Z is seen as the couch potatoes. Can't disagree necessarily. I mean, I feel like how humans are, right, and how we live, we sort of will try and make our lives the best possible, like as a whole, and then future years that then makes it easier for the newer generation. In certain aspects, certain things may not be easier, like house prices. But yeah, overall life becomes a lot easier, and I think the generations coming up, like life should realistically be a lot easier, unless we're now reaching a point where we're at the limits now, and it just gradually gets worse or stabilizes or whatever. But with like AI and robots, I feel like we're going to be at a point where people will just stop working, and they'll probably just get like an amount of money from the government that just finances their life, and then if they find sort of other ways to make money, they can make it. But that's probably how it's going to be. Actually, I don't know, maybe not, but like, when robots can do anything now, or they'll just find very niche jobs for us, which I can't really think of. But yeah, this has been a long intro. We're going to jump into this. Hopefully, going to enjoy. And yeah, let's see what Gen X went through, making it the hardest working generation of all time. Not the hardest generation of all time. That's a bit crazy.
This is the hardest working generation that has ever existed in the history of mankind. Being born in the face of the Cold War, the collapse of the Berlin Wall, the advent of HIV and AIDS, and working as hard as possible was the only option they had to survive the transformation.
Did HIV and AIDS really affect the overall population that much? Is that really an addition to that? I understand the work stuff, but HIV and AIDS wasn't just... Was it like a... I mean, it probably was a global scare at a point, to be honest.
Of civilization they had been hit by. This is one reality the millennials and Gen Zs will never understand. Being born in the era of technology and the internet. But
Hell
what
yeah,
is
bro. I mean, I'll be honest, I'm so thankful for that, but then people who aren't born in it are so thankful for not being in that, so it's just what you're used to.
Reason for the solid work ethic of Gen X, which many people say is the hardest working generation? Gen X vs other generations today. It's no secret that a favorite pastime of Gen Zs and millennials is complaining about people not understanding them. You don't understand us is the whiny slogan of these two
I've never said that, bro.
generations put together. It's the banner they march behind. They believe that no one in history can relate to or understand their difficulties.
Damn, I feel like my throat's being come for right now. I ain't said this shit.
And no one has ever had it worse than they have. However, this is not entirely true. We love to talk about the ongoing cultural and economic war between the baby boomers and millennials, and even the rise of the new Generation Z. But there's one group that's often overlooked in these conversations, and that's Generation X, the ones who grew up between boomers and millennials, and like many middle children were overshadowed by both. You might be wondering why Gen X deserves more credit for quietly changing the world, and I'm going to explain it to you.
Here we go.
Baby boomers inherited a thriving
It's time to appreciate what Gen X did for us. I'm
economy
here
in
for
the
it.
United States and immediately went all out to destroy it, as well as the environment. They increased the national debt and consumed record amounts of fossil fuels.
Okay.
Meanwhile, Gen Xers had a completely different growing up experience than their parents, in that during the 1960s and 1970s, the divorce rate in the United States surged, resulting in new family dynamics.
So yeah, I mean, actually, I guess with American baby boomers, I was thinking about rebuilding after World War II, but that probably wouldn't have really been a thing in the US because I don't think the US really got hit, or it didn't get hit on the mainland. That would be more for like the UK and like European countries where maybe that would be more applicable.
And it became more typical for women to join the workforce rather than stay home. Because childcare programs were not yet common, many Gen X children spent a lot of their time with little to no adult supervision, as their parents were at work when they got out of school. This is why the term latchkey generation is used to describe this demographic cohort. A latchkey kid is a child who arrives home alone after school since their parents are at work.
Okay.
The term relates to the key that the children either carry with them or collect from underneath the mat on the porch to open the door. Their youth was a turbulent...
See, surely if everyone put their keys under the porch, people would have figured out and be like, okay, let's just, get this key, rob this house. I mean, I'm assuming that probably happened because everyone does that. Even now, people do it like under the mat. It's just where you put it.
Period in the United States, with a constant crack epidemic, a surge in violent crime, and the emergence of the AIDS epidemic. In their youth, the media portrayed Generation X as disillusioned, indifferent, cynical, and lazy. They were the MTV generation, which witnessed the rise of music videos, grunge music, and hip-hop. They were obstinate and reluctant to grow up.
That's a pretty cool generation, I'll be honest.
But we all have to grow up. And when Gen Xers did, they shattered everyone's prejudices about them. According to a Stanford University study, Gen X youth were more cynical and frustrated than prior generations were when they were young. But they also discovered that all generations were more cynical and frustrated during this period, implying that it was not a Gen X phenomenon. In fact, being unable to rely significantly on their parents may have taught the latchkey generation to work hard and be independent, which contributed to their future success. Millennials and Generation Z are often defined by their attachment to the internet and technology.
Facts.
But Generation X was the first to grow up with computers and video games in the house. Generation X grew up to become the pioneers of the contemporary Silicon Valley tech industry and the driving force behind the country's economic resurgence in the 1990s.
Fair.
Their previously discussed rebelliousness and arrogance for authority fueled innovation and upheaval in a variety of areas. It's strange to think of Jeff Bezos on the edge of Gen X as a disillusioned young person spearheading a revolution against traditional retail giants, when he's now the richest man on the planet and is viewed as corporatism personified by many of today's youth. In reality, some of today's most well-known leaders are from Generation X, including Elon Musk, Larry Page, Susan Wojcicki, Joni Ive, Justin Trudeau, and ironically, Jay-Z.
What random list of people?
It turns out that challenging the status quo is a really solid business strategy and a wonderful driver of innovation. Because
I assume you can make a list like that for any generation because there's such a high amount of people that will be born in that generation. You're going to obviously get these standout people throughout all generations.
Grew up in an analog environment before the personal computer. They have a unique perspective on how to connect the past and the future. This, I believe, is a key to their success, but it also explains why they are often disregarded now. Generation X today. These days, Gen Xers are either mid-career professionals or they hold leadership roles. The circumstances surrounding the time this generation was born are responsible for their skill, experience, and for their hard work ethics, for which they are highly respected. They may, however, be a smaller generation than the baby boomers or millennials, which could result in a talent deficit when they retire or take on new responsibilities. Interestingly, within the last couple of decades, there has been a significant transition, especially in terms of the number of people employed. Baby boomers, Generation X, Millennials, and Generation Z will be the dominant generations in the workforce in 2024. But the question is, will the Millennials and Gen Z be able to cope when the Gen Xers are out of the workplace?
Damn.
Due to their upbringing in the shadows of the powerful boomer generation, these Gen X employees possess independence, resilience, and adaptability. This generation, in contrast to the baby boomers, works to live and carries a certain pessimism with them. They love it when they are in full control, working by their own rules and style, especially in handling difficult tasks. They are comfortable challenging authority and view a job as simply that, a job. Not just that, these guys advanced from just meager workers into management posts during and after the recession. The capacity of Generation X in the workplace. Gen Xers are known to be independent.
This is such an AI video, by the way. I've realised it's just saying, it's sort of saying stuff without fully saying it. I feel like I can't really like take in all the information because you're sort of giving us a thing to say, but then you're not actually going into that. You're just sort of briefly touching upon it.
Independent, autonomous, and enterprising, and they frequently figure out ways to increase success and productivity at work.
Goddamn.
Being able to survive the harshest era in history, Gen Xers are frequently naturally good at
Did they? No, they didn't. Baby boomers, no. Before that, what do you mean?
solving difficulties and coming up with original and
That's probably gonna piss some people off. Maybe I'm wrong. Hey, you know what? Gen Xers, I'm sorry. I could be wrong. He said all these things, or the AI said all these things that you've had to deal with throughout the generation. So I hold my hands up. I could be wrong. You can't actually see that I'm doing it. I'm holding my hands. Oh, I can't fucking function this camera. I'm sorry. I apologize. But no, surely the generations before that, going through World War II or like rebuilding after, again, especially in, I guess for US maybe it is. I don't know.
unconventional solutions. Because of their creative work approach, many Generation Xers tend to function excellently well in leadership positions, bringing their wealth of personal knowledge and wealth of experience to any team and any role they occupy. This is largely because many of them started working right out of school, and they were able to hone their team building and leadership capabilities right from the onset, contrary to many Gen Zs. Stretched but not broken. According to the 2023 Asia Mental Health Index by Aon and TELUS Health, Generation Xers feel less stressed than their younger counterparts and can focus more effectively at work than people under 40. The findings showed that younger workers are more fatigued than older ones, saying that employees under 40 years of age are nearly 50% more likely than employees older than 50 to feel mentally and/or physically exhausted at the end of their workday.
I can see that.
According to the AON analysis, those over 50 have strained mental health, but people under 40 in Asia have distressed mental health. It also proves that productivity and mental wellness are directly correlated. As for Gen Zs, they feel the most stress as most of their work only requires mental strength with little or no physical effort. The study shows that employees under 40 are particularly feeling the strain of poor mental health, whilst those between 20 to 29 years old are significantly worse off with a
I
mental
was not expecting to get some sort of lecture like this.
health index score of 57.8, representing the most strain and the highest mental health risk of any age group by a significant margin.
Well, just
It
cut
is
off like that.
obvious that every generation has played its part in advancing the world, but the hard truth is no generation has put in the work, time, discipline, and commitment like Gen X. Even though their time is gradually coming to an end, their absence will create an
Fucking hell. Their time's coming to it. They're like mid-50s or like 50, maybe a bit younger, a bit older. Time's not coming to an
irreplaceable
end.
vacuum in the workplace. Let me know what other notable Gen Xers you can think of and how you think being a Gen Xer has helped shape their success today. Please don't forget
There we go. I mean, look, this was a very interesting video. I can't lie, it's very poor. I mean, that's just AI, isn't it? But in terms of what Gen X has done, a lot for like culture and society, and I guess even like, or not even like, but like stuff like technology, etc. So many things from Gen X. But then I always think of it as like a thing of they sort of took things from the previous generation, and then the millennials then take bits from Gen X. It's just how it is. It's like passed on. So in this era, or people from this era, they did crazy things. So you got to respect that. But at the end of the day, I don't look at generations like as a thing like, oh, you're from this generation. I couldn't care less. I'll be real. But I understand for some people, maybe it's more of like it means more. But yeah, this is an interesting video. It probably would have been better if it was a real person doing it. But you know what? It is what it is. Gen X here, we're less stressed because we are adaptable and accept that there are some things we can control and some things we can't. But this is just an individual thought. I assume not every Gen X person is going to feel like this. Maybe this is an overall difference, but I feel like you can't really just say this when everyone's going to be so different throughout different walks of life within this generation. I think Gen X self-isolates more than other generations. Gen X, we did not run our mouths. We just did it. Born in '69, I can use a phone book, card catalog, Dewey Decimal System, and Google. Do I want a cookie for that? Yes. What? What's a Dewey Decimal System? I don't know what the hell that is. I am Gen X, and honestly, I think my grandfather's generation, World War Two, was the greatest. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, realistically, it depends on where you're from, what country you grew up in, the era that you're in throughout your country. Like, I'll be real. I'm trying to think. There's probably a Gen Z generation somewhere in the world that had their hardest lives in this era. Like, they're the ones who have suffered more than other generations in their country or in their region. So it's hard to say, but yeah, I get what this video is trying to do, and yeah, Gen X done a lot. I just feel like AI isn't very good at explaining things, but that's pretty much it. Let me know your thoughts, and yeah, until next time, like, subscribe, and peace.